Chris, thank you so much for coming. I heard so many good things about you. I couldn't wait to give you an opportunity to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and everything in between. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for Doron for having me on. It's a pleasure, and I'm always here to provide value and new learning opportunities, as my experience in this space is 26 years now.
Amazing, amazing. So, for people meeting you for the first time, can you share a little bit about your background and what you're focusing on today?
My background, I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, and then I was in tech business early 2000 or late 90s. Then tech guys in the dot-com bubble, we lost. I got laid off. I was 25 years old with 3 jobs, 3 tech companies, making 300 grand a year. That was pretty good for 25, but it was W-2. And this was, think of this, 26, 27, 28 years ago. That was a lot of money. So especially for me being single, whatever. So when I got out of tech, I was like, what do I do? A friend of a friend said, hey, I got this guy. His name is Douglas McCabe. You should meet with him. And he needed a database built. It was the first database of its type to track foreclosures. Because 30 years ago, 26 years, what's that?
26 years?
26 years ago, the only way you could find out about foreclosures was you had to get a relationship with the title company to send you the microfiche, of the notice of defaults. So we put together a program and some scanning stuff where it would scan it into a database, separate the notice of defaults by zip code. So we had our own internal database, mostly in Portland, Oregon, Portland Metro, Oregon, and then Clark County for Vancouver, Washington. So that's where I started. So basically, at the end of the day, I helped this guy build this database. He took me under his wing, taught me door knocking, taught me foreclosures. And then I became a loan officer. So I had my own net branch. So he's like, you need to learn how the money works first in real estate to understand the distress of the homeowner, right? So, think of this, 26 years ago in the foreclosure space, there was very little competition. In Portland, Oregon, a big city as it is, there was only 5 of us in the whole city doing
That's crazy.
Knocking on doors. I was wholesaling 3 to 5 deals a week very easily.
Yeah.
And it was just, those were the good old days, So I learned a lot, then we started a national company, and we were doing, before loan mods were a bad name or you had to have licensing. I was doing mortgages before there was even licensing. So if you knew how to fill out a 1003 application and your broker had the relationship with whatever lender, like anybody could become a loan officer. You just had somebody had to train you, right?
Right.
So with all that, so I got good at that. Then I kind of went out on my own, moved from Portland to Las Vegas, and then I started a surplus proceeds business, which I did, $10 million in a year and a half in surplus proceeds. Friend of mine built a fund for me. So I'd go out and get the surplus proceeds or excess funds, and then I would immediately sell my paper to them as long as it met their criteria. Sometimes I'd make $100,000 on one deal. But on average, it was 15, 20, 30,000 bucks on every surplus proceeds deal. Now, this is the funny thing. I was the only one doing it in all of Las Vegas.
How many did a month?
How about a week?
I don't know how many a week. You tell me.
5 to 10 surplus proceeds deals a week. With the average surplus proceed being $50,000 to $60,000 on each one of those.
Right. And then you turn it, so you sold the note, like 30 cents on the dollar?
So the way surplus works is we buy the homeowner's claim or their right, like a redemption right. If it's a personal property right, it can be sold under the law. So we pay them consideration for that. So usually I offer 20 cents, 30 cents on the dollar for the money, right? So once I pay them consideration, it's four corners of the contracts. It's no different than buying real estate with a contract than assigning your right.
So you own that surplus money now, and what do you
Right,
do with
because
it?
I paid for it.
Correct. But what do you,
Right.
how are you actually cashing it?
Well, then you send you always involve an attorney, because the
Sure.
trustees of the foreclosing attorneys or trustees don't want to talk to you and I, but they'll talk to an attorney. So I had a friend of mine's an attorney, so we just structured out a deal to where it was like, hey, flat fee, you get paid this on these types of claims. So everybody was making money along and winning along the way. So they would send a love letter basically saying, hey, look, here's all the paperwork. My client bought this claim. Please release the money to my trust account. Now, if there was multiple junior lien holders or sewer, water, and stuff like that, they typically would not release that money out right away. They will then file a complaint for interpleader, if you know what that means.
Yeah.
So, yep. So
But
complaint
tell
for
our listeners,
interpleader.
so they know. I'm so sorry for cutting you off, Chris. Tell our listeners what that means in your language.
A complaint for interpleader is basically saying they're going to take the money and plead it into the court, because the person who's holding the money, like a title company, escrow, or trustee, foreclosing attorney, they have no rights to the proceeds, and they don't care who gets the money, but they don't want the liability for releasing it to the wrong party. So let the court decide.
Yep.
So when that happens, you get served a complaint. Then you don't even file an answer. You just file a motion to adjudicate the funds. In about 35 days, you have a hearing, and the judge releases the money. Pretty straightforward process. Now, the longest one I had lasted 9 months, because the judge could not release the money until everyone who had a claim to the money, like there was some junior liens, there was some like trash and stuff like that. Well, these guys that are only owed $400 or $500, they're not going to submit their claim at all. So what we did is like, man, this is taking forever to get them to pay off. We just went down and then paid off the lien.
That makes sense.
Pay off the lien, get the release for it. Now you're going to get the money back anyway. So
yeah.
So started that. And then, as the market started crashing in around 05, 06, kind of that's where it started from an investment standpoint. Wholesaling real estate was really hard when half the United States was upside down.
I bet it wasn't easy. Yeah.
So my attorney, my real estate attorney said, Chris, just come work for me, be my paralegal, but go to law school while you're going to learn it while you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And so I went to law school.
Because you didn't have anything better to do.
I didn't have any shit else to do. And I didn't have it.
Life is funny,
real estate market
right?
was so depressed. I didn't have a way to make money.
Yeah.
Right.
Life
So I was like, okay. Yep. So that's when we started doing Chapter 11 bankruptcies. Mm-hmm. That's kind of one of my powers, is I look to litigate. When I see property that's upside down, what people realize is you got to understand, buying a property that's $1 million upside down is good for your tax return.
Okay. You want to elaborate?
So let's say I bought, and I just did the tax return. Andrew, Andrew Murray?
Yep.
Okay. So Andrew and I did a deal 2 years ago. They found a property in New Jersey, in Bloomsbury, around his neck of the woods. It had $2.5 million of debt on it.
Wow.
We paid a couple $100 for the deed. Okay, think about this. $2.5 million in debt. What's the basis of the property now? 2.5, right? So for depreciation, when you're making money, that depreciation on that real estate you own, so the depreciation is going to be based on 2.5 million.
Well, what is it worth as it stands, though?
Well, this is where we get in the bankruptcy realm. So we're going to manipulate the appraisal. People say, oh, that's illegal. No, it's not. As long as you order what they call a restricted appraisal from the appraiser, not every appraiser knows how to do these, and some of them won't. It's just not common. Then you get to tell the appraiser, you say, look, this property is going to be, I want a hypothetical appraisal, restricted for my eyes only, because I want to see what the value is based on a certain capitalization rate. So I say, look, we got the property rented for $4,000 a month. Here's the property taxes, here's the insurance, the net operating income is X, and I want you to appraise this property at a 12% cap rate. Tell me what the value is going to be at 12%.
So operating equal income goes to commercial real estate. So are we doing commercial?
Well, residential. Remember, a cap rate is tied to any rental property.
If it's an investment property, yes, I understand.
Correct. So the law says when you get into bankruptcy, property should be appraised based on its use. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
That's court cases. So if we're using the property as a rental property, like the sales comparison approach would put the property at 700 grand, right? But the income approach to you getting an appraisal it dropped our value to 420. That's what we wanted. Because now when you go into a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, so we take the property into an LLC, we put the LLC in bankruptcy. Now, what did we do with all these junior liens? There was an underlying 380 or so that was owed on the first with about $80,000 in arrears at 2.99%, right? When we put that property in bankruptcy and we showed the judge our appraisal, that we want the property valued according to the court based on this number. And as long as nobody opposes it, the judge is going to eliminate all the junior liens.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's based on it's based on the evidence before the court. And if there's no competing evidence, the judge rules on what's before their eyes.
Yeah.
So check this out. So I think we were into the property for about 435, 440 all in. Little rehab, breadth of loan current. So we completed the bankruptcy in 6 months, wiped out all the liens, judgments, state taxes in New Jersey. Everybody got wiped out. But our basis is 2.5. Okay, we sold that property 3 months after bankruptcy. We sold it last year.
You're frozen. Sorry. Now I got you back. My apologies. Okay. So you said you were for something in, and then I lost you.
So we where was I at?
You patched it a bit. You put lipstick on a pig, basically, and you were about
yeah. So we were into the property about 440 total.
Got it.
Andrew put it on the market. He sold that property for $715. 3 months after the bankruptcy was concluded. Now our basis was 2.5 because your basis is based on all the liens and encumbrances. So we preserved our basis through the bankruptcy court through what they call a contested liability doctrine. It's a legal doctrine that says we believe that none of these liens are enforceable or even valid. And if nobody opposed it, all the liens got removed, but the basis remained the same. So when we sold that property, we paid no taxes on the 300 so grand, almost 275,000 we put in our pocket. No capital gain.
Beautiful. Wow. And
so then when I just finished the tax return on that, our partnership return, and we each got like a $633,000 loss, even though we put money in our pocket.
Yeah. We put about 200 in your pocket.
Yeah, we 275 in our pocket, sparsed out between our percentages. Yeah. But even though we put money in our pocket, we got a net operating loss of, 1.4 million or something like that as I'm doing the tax return because we had some depreciation. So sometimes when you look at my message here is just because it looks like there's no money, there is sometimes money to be made. The money is, so let's say you have a property that there's a 500,000 first and it's in foreclosure. There's a judgment for $1 million and an IRS lien for $1 million. So the total encumbrances on that property are 2.5. Give the guy 10 grand for the deed because when the first forecloses, the trustee's deed is the triggered sales price. So the sales price was 500 grand. Now you just harvested a $2 million loss.
So let me make sure I wrap my head around that because you're proficient at it and you're going fairly quick, not just for me, I'm sure for the listeners also. So if there's about $2.5 million encumbrances on that property, and you say give the seller $10,000 for the deed, right? Then you took about $2.5 million in debt, which I'm breaking this down slow for a purpose. Okay, and how exactly then you go ahead and you eliminate most of them? you just keep the senior and satisfy that and dismiss the others in court. That's the strategy.
Well, that's a bankruptcy strategy. The other strategy is if the first mortgage is already in foreclosure, and let's say you don't really want the property, okay, let the first mortgage continue to foreclose, right? The property's in your LLC. So if the first mortgage forecloses, it's going to wipe out any of the junior liens anyway. Okay. So you're not buying the property. You're buying this to harvest a tax. It's a tax loss strategy, right? So,
right. But just for me to make sure I understand, if the first position forecloses on it, end up following through, he wipes everyone before that, but it also owns the asset.
That's okay, because the trustee's deed that gets filed after there's a foreclosure, right? So let's assume that the property goes to foreclosure and the bank takes it back at $500,000. Now there was $2 million in additional liens on that property. Let's say $1 million judgment and $1 million IRS lien. Okay, because you took the deed subject to the existing liens and encumbrances, your basis in the property was 2.5. So when it sold at auction for 500, you just harvested a $2 million loss.
Got it. So you don't have to own. Sorry for cutting off, Chris. I want to make sure I follow, and everyone else hearing it also follows. You don't really own the property. You're just harvesting the loss. It's just a tax strategy.
It's a tax strategy. So I do a couple of those a year, just like that, to harvest the loss, so that I pay zero income taxes.
That's amazing.
In today's world now, you know, after I got out of law school, I went and got my license through the IRS I'm an enrolled agent, so it's the equivalent of a CPA. I'm licensed by the IRS. And so I have a full service tax accounting firm. You know, that's my primary, like, day to day. Well, at least it's seasonal anyway for me. And I do tax strategies for people. We do the planning, the bookkeeping if they want to. Trust me, I don't like doing bookkeeping because it's not like a revenue generator. It's more of a time consuming for low amount of fee. Yeah. And so last couple of years, I've done a tax strategy using tiny homes. So I got my manufactured housing license to be able to go straight to the factory and buy these things at my price, but also have them custom made. So I'm sending 10 of them up to Jordan Reyes's park to do like a revenue share with him. I'm placing tiny homes in people's RV parks, not for workforce housing, just for short-term rentals. So it's got to be kind of a higher end RV resort, not something where we're just trying to get $700 a month at, right?
Yeah.
So we're renting them things short-term rentals. So I basically upgraded my tiny homes, put granite countertops, you know, nicer appliances, paid a little bit more for them from the factory, but I sold 34 tiny homes in the last 75 days of last year, increasing my balance sheet by $42 million. I sold my tiny homes at $1,250,000 a piece.
How did you manage that?
I take 10% down, then I'm the bank on the other 90%. So what I did here is,
what do you mean? 10%? You give the manufacturer. I want to make sure I follow because you go really quick, Chris. You give 10% for the manufacturer, right?
So I sell for $1,250,000. You give me 10% down, which would be $125,000, right?
Yeah, but who is the product? The manufacturer. Well, he's not releasing it before.
No. That 10% you pay me pays the manufacturer.
Exactly. Okay.
Right?
Now I understand. Yep.
Got it. So then I'm carrying the other 90%. Okay. Long-term debt. So we put this tiny home into a cash flowing park or at a location that's going to generate higher than average, like Airbnb style income.
Yeah, I get it, but it has to work. It spits enough money to basically cover what you have to pay the manufacturer. It's almost like a wrap.
Right. Well, no, the manufacturers pay. Right. Look, my price of what I buy these from the manufacturers, the $125,000 pays the manufacturer.
That's your business. I'm just saying, generally speaking, if the 10% they give you pays for that's amazing. But don't you carry some sort of a debt? I don't care how much you're buying them for. It's none of my business. I'm just saying, do you still have a debt on them before you move them over to the RV parks?
The debt is owed to me.
Well, that I get. But before we talk about that, when you give them the
Oh
10%,
no, there's no more debt on that tiny home.
perfect. So it's you give it to them, to the RV or whoever the investor, okay, with you don't have any debt yourself on it, but they obviously have to pay for the product. I get it for sure. And so you're facilitating it as the bank.
Right. So I'm facilitating the bank carrying the additional debt on. So I put a lien on it. The rental income pays my lien. It pays the park. We do a revenue share there, and then the owner, the investor that bought the tiny home, got $1,250,000 tax deduction through bonus depreciation for $125,000. So when you look at calculations, like if you had $1,250,000 in income, just for illustration purposes, you're going to owe about $400,000 in taxes.
You're a freaking genius, man. You're a freaking genius.
So for $125,000, we just eliminated $400,000 in taxes. Now use that $290,000 or so $275,000 that you saved. Now go buy real estate with it.
So just for the listeners to follow, because what you did obviously is brilliant. I mean, obviously, nothing's obvious in this world. For me, it's obvious. It's brilliant because you took tax strategy from a different life and you implemented them on a current life that you did from the foreclosure or whatever that we just went over like 7 minutes ago, in just a different, which is freaking brilliant. Wow. Okay. So you sold it for them for 1.2 million. I'm rounding it up, maybe 1.25. It doesn't really matter. You sold it for them for that. So that's basically your bill of sale, and that's what it's written that they bought it for. And then they use the proceeds of whatever that spits out on their parks to give you your payment for the goods. I mean, obviously you gave it some, right?
Yeah.
And then it make their own profit. Now so from that point on, once comes the season of income tax, everyone hates, including myself. You might like it because you're a CPA or whatever, in your business, but everyone else in this country hate income tax season. Never mind. There's a lot to be said about that. But
now,
then
let me tell you about the new strategy. And where is everything you have in New Jersey?
No, not at all. Let me just go full
You're in Pennsylvania.
I'm trying to hear what you have to say, but I just want to go full circle for the listeners, right? Come the income tax season, you basically have a tax depreciation of 1.2 million that you paid for it, right?
Yeah.
And then that translates into, you said about 120,000?
275 tax savings.
275 tax savings that you can offset a different income.
Right. So when you're utilizing bonus depreciation, so what I do is I put strategies together. I go out and look for assets that have, let's just say, a certain capitalization rate because they generate income. So if that cap rate is real high, we can put leverage in RVs. So tiny homes are RVs.
Okay.
The RV, you can buy an RV brand new from $20,000 all the way up to $6 million, depending on if it's a marathon coach or Prevost or something like that. Those start at the Prevos and marathons and Monacos. Their starting price this year is $3.2 million for 270 square foot bus. Think of that.
Well, oh yeah. I mean, Pace just got one for the nation tour. He told me it cost him $250.
Well, that's a cheap one.
Well, New Rich don't want the biggest, baddest.
But I mean, think of it. There's brand new ones of those coaches. The starting price is $3 million.
That's crazy. That's madness.
So when I look at the tiny home space, I go, well, okay, I'm going to put my price tag on it, help you with your taxes, generate cash flow for the next 30 years for my family by carrying the note.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win, right?
Now I found a new depreciation strategy. This one will blow your mind. It'll blow the audience's mind. You ever been to Dave & Buster's?
Unfortunately, not my favorite places, but my kids love it. So yes.
Because of our kids, yes. And I know when my kid, they spend money, my daughter will spend probably $200
your money. Let's just
spend my money.
Yes.
Spend my money in those arcade games. So I had a guy Paul Alex, I don't know if you've ever met Paul Alex or Paul Espinoza. It's Cash Swipe, Level Up with Paul Alex, #1
Okay.
business podcast on Apple Podcast, right? So
Nice.
he's a buddy of mine. I was on his podcast, I don't know, back in September last year.
Sweet.
So Paul sends me a text. He goes, "Hey, can you talk to this person? She's got some opportunity. I just can't figure it out. Maybe you can figure it out." Of course, I'll figure it out. So these guys are manufacturing adult arcade games, not like pornography, but more in the form of games of skill you can win money at.
Okay.
Okay. Just like going to Dave and Buster's, you put your swipe your card and you win tokens or coins. Well, that's really, in prizes, it's more of a cash equivalent at the end of the day.
It's a gambling machine. It's a very, very
But
dangerous
it's
area.
legal. But it's legal.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know nothing about it to even have an argument with you. I just know that I had a friend that really got in trouble on the federal level with those type of machines. But again, I don't know as much as you, so I'm not even having a discussion.
So these machines right
Yeah.
now, the company's been around 10 years. They do game of skill, not game of chance is called gambling. When you spin the button, you can't, you don't know if you're going to win or not. Game of skill is you got to do something to, you got to press the button while the string hits the X. And if you miss the X, you lose.
Like the
or
thing.
the claw.
Got it. Okay.
No, they're games of skill. Okay.
Skill. Got it. Okay.
Dine Brands, which owns IHOP and Applebee's and Fuzzy's Tacos, which is mostly in the Midwest or Oklahoma, Texas, Northern Texas, they just put an order for these machines, and I have the PO for 14,000 of these arcade games. They're going to put them in every one of their restaurants.
Okay.
Okay. So, they're looking for a line of credit. I hooked them up with my investment bankers. So we have an underwriting.
Stuck again, brother.
Is that better now?
Yes,
Back?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So long story short, I looked at the revenue model of what these arcade games do, and there's like 9 games on one game, right? So you pick whatever you want to play. But the average game is pulling in $5,000 a month. Cash. The top game, which is in Texas, there's one at a sports bar in Texas. It's pulling in $14,300 a month.
Of
one
course.
game that
Of course,
costs like $10,000, right?
Yeah, well, there's drunk people. There's always good business to be made. I have a liquor license, I know.
So I started looking at this going, damn, man, the cash on cash return on these games is
monsoon. Yeah.
So basically, I got a 5-year exclusive marketing agreement to sell these things.
How the hell did you manage that?
They needed money. I had a connection. So I said, how do I benefit? I got to be able to buy these for myself, place them in locations that I want, right? Because I want to make the revenue off this. It's all passive income at the end of the day. But think about buying an arcade game is an asset. It's called a computer peripheral. You can use bonus depreciation for it against your taxes.
No kidding.
So the revenue model of this, what I'm doing is 9 games. Let's say it's $15,000 a game that you want on there. Software costs, licensing, blah, 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 blah. So I'll sell the game for $125,000. I'll take 10% down, give people that leverage, and I carry the paper for the other remaining amount that the game pays. But the cash on cash return, if you need a tax depreciation, is like 36% annualized.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Like all the rentals that I have, you get some cash flow, but if a tenant moves out and all that other stuff, man,
I know.
You lose your profit.
Oh yeah, 100%. So you took a real estate game, you took a real estate game and you put it on a console game, to dumbify things, and then before that, I recognize a pattern. You took foreclosure game and you put it on tiny home or whatever RVs, and you just keep reinventing. So you're a perfect example of what's called a serialpreneur, right? People who always have the itch to try to reinvent themselves. They get bored easily, which, you know what? you put me in check for being upset with my teenage daughter that is just not being able to stick with something and just keeps getting bored of things. You know what? You gave me a lesson without even knowing you gave me one, and it has nothing to do with tax strategies. It's nothing to do with ROIs. It's nothing to do with cash on cash returns. I just love to hear who you are as a person, and that's super dope because I know a lot of really wealthy people. I'm doing okay for myself, and I always say, I make money. Money doesn't make me. Like just because you know how to make money, you're a very, very, very different individual than most, because you can do good in one area, but to be able to readapt and leverage knowledge you carry from every adaptation, which by the way I did four times in my life. I didn't do it as much as you, for sure, nowhere near. But because I did, I know how to recognize what you're doing, which obviously is amazing in my eyes. But I want to put it forth for the listeners to understand how people get bent out of shape for losing their job, which is like this in comparison to how you evolve time and time again. You follow me, Chris?
So yeah, it's more of, look, you have to adapt and overcome. You have to be able to pivot around the market conditions that surround you. And sometimes it's not necessarily local. It could be micro or macro, right? So yeah, like I have another venture I'm starting with a peptide business. I'm getting in the peptide game.
Well, I said on a stage in front of 3,500 people, anybody here knows what's the most important trait a successful person has to have. Nobody got it right, and the answer was pivot.
So it's interesting in this peptide craze right now. I've got a doctor as a partner, which is good because I don't understand all the science stuff. I'm a financial guy. I'm a tax and law guy, right?
Yeah.
And an entrepreneur, and I'll find things that can make money, or I can find a way to pivot it to make money and get people excited and happy to buy it. But we're going to open up, just like the old CBD stores, like 10 years ago. We're going to start doing retail peptide stores, which is crazy. You only need 600 square feet or something for a retail peptide store. You don't need a big footprint, but those stores will pull in between $200,000 to $300,000 a month, and it's all cash. Okay, because of the health benefits that peptides present today: anti-aging, inflammation, muscle building, sleep. Like all these different things that the amino acids and proteins are doing. It's crazy. I just said, okay, I'm opening up 5 stores right off the get. I got $1 million of products here in my shop office in my building, sitting in the freezer right now. We're just waiting for the testing to get turned around, and before we can put our labels on it and start selling it. So we're going to go with a dealership model nationwide.
Interesting. So who's
all our manufacturing is being done here in Las Vegas. It's like the capital outlay that I'm putting out is going to be about $500,000 to $1 million just in equipment and processes and people. Sure. But I mean, the return on that, like I've got other doctors that want to buy territories, and they go, okay, we'll go with your brand because I've set up the SOPs. We've done all this other stuff, the knowledge base. And it's like, what do I charge for a region? One guy wants 10 stores like right now. It's like,
yeah, I mean, if you can pre-list those bad boys or license them, right?
We're going to do a licensing model, not a franchise model, just licensing.
Yeah,
dealership.
That's the way to go. That's how I would structure it. Well, for sure. So, who do you think the strategies tend to work best for, in your opinion? You have a lot of different tax strategies, but also things a little bit more advanced. For the audience here, who do you think it could benefit the most? Just professionals in real estate?
Typically, tax strategies wise, and look, I run into a lot of people and they're going, yeah, we make a lot of money. It's like 250 grand a year. And it's like, okay, that's probably just my overhead, you know?
Oh,
Um,
I know. Uh, Dude, I sold companies that my weekly payroll was like 30, 50 a week. So yeah,
right.
I know.
So at the end of the day, tax strategies tend to not start working for taxable income at 250,000 or more. Frankly, if you're in the $100,000 game, by the time you pay somebody like me to implement the strategies, like you really don't have any savings. You paid more in fee than there was savings. It like equaled out, right? But
That's
the
fair. Yeah,
best tax strategies are where you can buy a depreciable asset with leverage, right? So that makes money. So you're not having to come out, other than the down payment, you never have to come out of pocket again, right? And a lot of people like to say, well, we're going to buy an Airbnb to do a cost seg. Let me explain how that's a losing money proposition if you're paying more than 5% down as an entry fee. So let's say you have $1 million property and you put 50 grand down on it. Okay. Let's say your cost segregation studies, they're going to run you, it's going to be, just to keep the numbers simple, you're going to get about a $250,000 accelerated depreciation on the light switches, the concrete, the steps, the light bulbs, the sink, the garbage disposal. Those are items that are depreciable in a building on 5 and 15-year depreciation schedules. So you get this accelerated depreciation of 250,000. You bought $1 million property. So if you're in a 30% tax bracket, right, that 250,000 only equates to a $75,000 tax savings, right? If you put 5% down on it, 50 grand because it was a sub 2 type deal, now you're winning the game. You're going 50 out of pocket, you're getting 75 back from the IRS, right? Or a credit. Okay. Now, traditionally, what people are doing, they're having to put 10% or 20% down. They'll get traditional financing. So if you had to go put 10% down, it's 100 grand, and your savings is only 75,000, you just lost money, right?
yeah.
And so people that are looking at doing, Airbnb as a cost seg type strategy, the most you can put down is 5% as your entry fee if you want to win the tax game. If you go over that, you're losing the game.
Got it. Got it. If there's one perspective shift you wish more business owners would make around taxes and wealth, what would it be?
Most small business owners, let's say you've got that legacy business, right? And, I'm going through this course. It's called the Exit Planning Institute. So I'm getting my certification to help small business owners learn how to plan for an exit the right way to maximize value in their business, not
Yep.
necessarily income, value, human capital, structure capital,
Enterprise
customer
value.
capital,
Yep.
and your social capital, your culture, right? Just because you make $40 million a year in your business and that's your income doesn't mean your business is worth 40 million. If you take the business owner away and it can't run, the business is worth nothing. It's a
I'm with
liquidation
you. I
issue.
understand. I
So,
sold companies. You're right. Yep.
so structuring your business, or small business owners, if you have a business in like home services, construction, technology, you want to take advantage of this thing called the qualified small business stock tax break provision. It'll allow you to sell your business in home services, constructions, and trades 100% tax free. But you have to be a domestic C corporation. Okay. So now, if you're looking at a family succession and you created this legacy, if you've got 15 or 20 plus employees, the best tax strategy is to sell your business to your employees through an ESOP exit. Because when you sell to your employees, and generally you're going to get 7 to 8x of EBITDA selling to your employees. Okay.
That's crazy.
When you sell to your employees, it's a zero tax sale. You don't pay any taxes on the sale. Now, what's the advantage of selling to your employees? The advantage is this, is because it's an ESOP trust, basically the employee pension plan owns the business now, okay? That business pays no federal or state income taxes. So
Wow.
that gives you a competitive advantage right out the gate.
Yep.
21% federal, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10% state, depending on where you're located.
Wow.
So if more small business owners knew about ESOPs, and there's not that many advisors in the United States that know how to do this, right? You're opening up your wealth gap, you're able to still stay in the business and work if you don't want to retire, right? But your pension plan grows 7 to 8 times faster than in the normal course because all the profits go into the pension plan, tax free.
Yeah. Yeah. But then when you try to pull it out, what happens?
Well, when you pull it out, like it's there for your retirement. Now, as the business owner, you're selling to the ESOP, you're carrying a note. So the profits for the first 5 or 10 years are going to pay off your note tax free. Now, Wells Fargo will give 35%. They'll give a loan to the business for 35% of the sales price. So that way the owner gets a chunk of money up front. Wells Fargo gets paid over the next 5 or 6 or 7 years. And then the owner gets, after Wells Fargo's pays, then you start getting the remaining of your note paid down. But the employee stock ownership plans are great strategies if you're going to sell your business and you have the right employee in the head count. It's a great strategy because now it reinvigorates the employees because they're going to stay longer. They own something now.
Amazing.
Typically, your third-party private equity sales, you're not going to capture what you want because they're trying to get the lowest price.
They're on the opposite. Yeah. I get it. I could go for another hour, but our time was up 15 minutes ago. I was having too much fun. Oh, lost you? No, I got you back. Okay. So for anyone who wants to learn more or connect with you, what's the best place for them to do so?
I have my website, which is it's www.thetaxfirm.us, or my phone number 702-498-2144. That's my cell number. If it's after 8:00 at night, I'm probably not answering the phone. And I get up early, but if you text me, tell me what the stated issue, of course we don't know each other, but I always give people 30 minutes of my time on an initial discovery call or something to see how I can help you. If you got a real estate problem, lien problems, you want to get rid of property that's over leveraged, you want to partner on a deal like that, I'm open. My buy box is pretty big, and I like buying properties that have more liens on them than what they're worth because I get a lower cost entry, a higher depreciable basis. And when I look at properties that have like judgments and IRS liens, okay, those things expire over time. So if you can hold for 10 years, 7 years, 8 years, and it's more of the long game, it's going to reward you for holding because those liens go away.
Yeah, I understand. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Chris.
you.
I know you gave an immense amount of knowledge and wisdom of many years doing what you did, what you're doing, and sounds to me like you're just learning more and more every minute of your life, which I admire because I'm the same way. I tell people if I'm not learning, I'm dying. That's the rule of nature, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. That's nature.
Right. Like I made it a point, like I try to get at least 1 or 2 new certifications a year. Right.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah, I love it. So thank you so much for all the value you gave everyone here. For sure. I'm going to cut this off and we might have a second that I needed to stay so we're not going to lose everything we recorded. Let's see. Leave studio. Okay.